la. Welcome, everyone, to the Connected for Real podcast. Oh, this is so fun. We've been live for a minute and I didn't even notice. Welcome to Rachel. Do you go by Rachel?
Either one. I go by whatever people call me.
That's
Between
great.
those two and some other versions, yeah.
Okay, great. So now I have to recenter myself because I just got caught off guard. I'm going to introduce the podcast. I'm going to introduce you, and then we're going to get right into it. Our topic today is receiving and business. And if you guys know, we have 4 pillars: God, marriage, business, and you. And this month we're talking about receiving. So this episode is specifically about receiving and business, which is so fun because you, Rachel, are the best person to have as a guest for this specific topic. And this is why I love the way that I scheduled my podcast is like God just sends me the right experts for the right things. So introduce yourself, tell everybody what you're all about, and then we'll get right into it.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm also excited about this conversation. As I was thinking about some of what I wanted to share and what we might talk about, I got even more excited about it from the first time that we chatted. In short, I am an entrepreneur turned business mentor and strategist, and I help women grow their businesses from the ground up in a way that allows them to really love their life and their business simultaneously. So it's rooted in values, it's rooted in who they are at their core so that everything is aligned. And we are ditching hustle culture and really leaning into the idea that your business should feel like you. It should feel like the thing you want to wake up to each and every day. And if it's not, then there are probably some structures, strategies, and systems and tools and things that we can be tweaking to recenter and really get somebody on the right path. So I deal a lot with foundations of business and helping people in their business models and developing their brands and their marketing strategies and really just putting intention behind everything that they're doing so that it works for them both in life and in business.
I love that. I love that. And you also made an amazing event that I was part of that I just want to give you so much credit for because I had so much fun.
Oh,
Um,
thanks.
uh, I think that it's a real superpower to be able to bring people together, and especially women together, and create a sense of belonging in such a large group, you know? Because it's easier when it's a small group. We can all sort of do it. But you did it in a large group, which was really awesome.
Thank you so much. I think that there is real power in women gathering together and supporting one another and showing up for one another and sharing their time and talents. And I know we're going to talk a lot more about that today with this topic of receiving in business. But I think that being part of community is essential
Yes.
for us thriving in our businesses and really feeling like we are held in a space that's going to help us reach our potential. I've just seen magic happen when women get together and gather and share their wisdom and their energy together. And there's just something totally unique about the way we do it, right? We all come into the
Um,
space and we're hugging and, there are tears sometimes. We're bringing our whole selves. It's not like we're checking anything at the door. And it's just so beautiful. So I've been very blessed to be able to create these spaces for lots of women to connect with each other. And then it's really beautiful also to see where those connections and relationships take them when they walk out the door.
I love that. I love it. Okay, so let's talk about receiving in business. The first thing I want to hear from you is where does that take you? Because there's so many different directions that I can go, and it's really fun to see where the brain goes with it.
Yeah, like I said, I've been thinking a lot about this, when we sort of set this up and we had a 1 day delay if you were tracking the schedule here. But I was thinking about what does it really mean to receive in business? Because I think a lot of times I encounter a lot of women who accidentally found themselves in business, right? They call themselves either an accidental entrepreneur or they just somehow started offering the thing that they do and then they're like, oh, lo and behold, here I am, I have a business. So what does it really mean to get intentional around this idea of receiving in business? And I thought about too, what holds us back from receiving? Because wow, there's so much. So I'd love to talk about that. And then maybe some practical steps that people can take to open up that pipeline to receiving in their business. So those are just like a few of the areas that I've been thinking
Mm,
about.
yes. I'm just thinking of the basics. Receiving in business, your business will not be a business. It's going to be a hobby if you're not actually receiving money, right? And that's like the basic of anything. And just the other day, I have a friend who's starting a business, and she said, "Yeah, but I feel so bad because if they don't get the result, then it's a waste of time. And then maybe I should just do it for free." And I was like, are you in business or are you not in business? So I think, before we get into any of the deeper stuff, I love to bring to the awareness that business is about the exchange of value, the exchange of, receiving money and paying for things, and then, being able to also receive advice and receive guidance from your mentors. Like there's so much receiving on the superficial level that we can't ignore.
Absolutely. I think the first place to start is that it begins with us owning our worth, right? If we're not owning our worth, then that example you gave is a great one. I literally had a client call yesterday, same situation. She has a client that she had a conversation with, and he wanted some new levels of support from her. She had already been supporting him in his business for several months. And she proposed the new fee, and then she started working because he needed it. And he didn't sign on the dotted line, and he didn't end up paying her. And she's like, maybe I should let it go. Right? When we own our worth, we don't just work for free.
Right.
Period. The end. We just don't, right? It's moving past like, who am I to charge for this? Who am I to go back? I didn't ask for him to sign on the dotted line and like reprimanding ourselves. No, you did the work. You showed up, you delivered, you stepped into your own value and your own truth, and you're owed for that. Right now, obviously, there are things that we can do to put in place so that these kinds of situations don't happen. But I think that all of this really does begin with saying yes to your own worth. And many of us are, I say, like a lot of heart centered entrepreneurs, they're givers. They are the kind of people who say things like, I would do this even if I weren't paid for it,
Right.
right? Because they love the work that they're doing. They love their businesses. They love their clients. They love helping. But like you said, without that what I call a two-way yes, right? That two-way yes, where like there's that even exchange of somebody is paying you for what you are offering them. And there's that balance. Like I'm picturing a weighted scale, right? And it becomes completely off balance if we don't have that two-way yes, right? When we're showing up with our time, our talents, our expertise, and our energy, it makes way for that receiving to happen. And if we only look at our businesses as a place where we are giving, then we have completely cut ourselves off to that channel of receiving.
Right. Right. Yeah. And then I'm also thinking, as soon as you said a scale, as soon as you pick up your part and you're like, oh, I don't need to get paid, the other person has it down. It does not ever work as a win-win when you just, sort of relieve yourself of having to be paid, because they need to pay in order to get the thing that they're getting, right? It's I
Yeah,
remember
it's like
about
it's
my
their buy-in. It's
yeah,
it's not just their buy-in, but it's like it's them showing up and saying yes to themselves as well. Like it's their level of commitment. It shows their level of commitment to the thing that they're looking for and that they desire or articulate it as a need. And
right.
when they don't put money behind that or some sort of a commitment, then yeah, that scale is completely out of whack on the other end.
Yeah, yeah. I signed up for a course for like a very small amount of money. I didn't open a single video, you know? And when I pay for courses, and I usually like them to be live because I like to show up live, which is why we're doing this live. I just find the energy is different about me, about showing up, about doing the work, about taking action. I have who to ask and who to keep me accountable. Like there's so much power to that commitment.
Absolutely. In the coaching world, and I've transitioned to calling myself a business mentor and strategist because I think that there's a lot that's been going down in the coaching world over the last couple of years that don't align with how I operate and show up in my business. And so I have wanted to distance myself from that world a little bit. But I think one of the practices and models that people were leveraging for a long time were these DIY courses. And people say it's passive income and it's like a no-brainer. You make tons and tons of money while you sleep. And it's not the reality for most people who go into their businesses, that they're going to be able to create a container where people show up when they're sleeping, right? Because there is that accountability. And that's also another exchange and way to open up that pipeline is like opening ourselves up to that kind of support. And the level of support that people get inside of a DIY course or something that you just buy off the shelf and are supposed to implement on your own might not be sufficient. I think data shows it's not sufficient for most people. And so they become really ineffective. And I think like receiving is it's staying in that place where it's the give and the get, where you want to be the giver, but you also know that you want the other person to be getting what it is that they're paying for, showing up for. I mean, as a business owner, I can say like I am most lit up when my clients are succeeding, right? And when they're growing and achieving wins that they've set out for. And so this is a big piece of it is knowing it's like you don't just want to sell something, right? It's not just about getting the sale. That's also not receiving. It's also like knowing that person on the other side is getting the value that they're looking for.
Right. There's a win we're going to get more into. Okay, so let's get into the of receiving.
My Bluetooth is doing something a little funky. What was the question?
I
Sorry.
said, so let's get into other ways. No, it's all good. I just want to tell you guys, this is like actually happening live. So a lot of my podcast episodes are pre-recorded, not in this way. Like all of them are going live, but in the actual podcast, when people listen in their ears, I pre-schedule a lot of my content so that I don't have to make sure that I'm like running behind the clock. And receiving in business was this one that we've been running after for a while. And we were supposed to record a while ago. And then the tragedy happened with my sister in law and then the baby. And so now it's been a month later. And it's my, I think it's my first time back. Maybe it's my second time actually. It's my second time back on, live podcasting. And I want to give that some space because I feel like a lot of a lot of the people who've been following me and have been aware that this is happening and then they go and they listen to a podcast and it's like I'm so normal, what's going on? So those are probably the ones that I pre-recorded, and this one you can tell I'm not doing as normal and as like life as usual because it's not, and it's totally legit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very real what's happening here, whether it's my Bluetooth or all, going live when we didn't know we were live or whatever. But I think that that brings us to another point, and this is something that we were talking about before we went live, which is really being open to receiving and embracing support. And, with the tragedy that your family just experienced, I was asking you about the level of support around you. I know that you have a VA who works for you and with you and has been tremendously supportive, and your husband. And I think that, there's this myth that strong, successful women do it all. And we have to break that down because it's just not the truth. There was a saying for decades, like behind every successful man is a woman who blah, blah, blah. Well, I'll say the same for us women, right? Behind every successful, strong woman is also some level of support. And I think that creating that support system around us is what allows us to show up in our businesses as receivers, right? And
Right.
saying yes to that, it's not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength and strategy.
For sure. Oh
Um,
my gosh, the craziest thing was that when I was at the Shiva, my brother was surrounded by so many people. And for the first time, I understood what it means to have the support. Like I listen to Rachel Rogers sometimes in her podcast, and she talks about you got to get yourself support. You can't be doing everything because she's right. It's the best thing that happened to my business and to me was when I got my assistant. And, I delegate a lot and I have a lot of really amazing people around me, which is such a blessing. But it feels weird to start, because as you said, we feel like there's this need to do it all. And in reality, it's
mhm,
like, no, no, it's
mhm.
actually the opposite. Like, if you want to be doing the thing that you're here to do, you're going to have to let other people do the things that aren't, you know,
Yeah.
as, as like unique to you.
Yeah. And I think too, like a business that can hold more receives more.
Mm,
So when you bring on a VA, your business actually grows its capacity, its ability to serve on a larger scale, right? When you have that support team around you, because I always tell people every single human on this planet only has 168 hours every week. We're all the same that way. Nobody has more time than somebody else. But if we want to expand our time and our ability to do more, we have to expand the team behind us, right? So it might not be the people that you're always seeing, but I think that this is a tremendous lever to receiving more. It's growing your capacity to do it.
I love it. I was telling my friend, I have, this she's been very supportive. So she's been around for this past month, just like right there helping me with everything. So we're also talking a lot. And so I was telling her that if you want something done, you give it to a busy person. And it's not because they have more time than everyone else, but it's they have the skills to know what needs to be done, what somebody else can do, and where they could cut corners. It comes more naturally to them because they've practiced it more.
Yeah.
And
And
that's
they know what to say yes to and what to say no to,
exactly.
right? It's
So,
all about the boundaries and mhm.
yeah, it's the same concept of if you want things to happen, you can start practicing skills that feel very uncomfortable when you're, normal. When you're like
Yeah.
living in this regular life where everybody feels like they have to do it all and, everybody takes care and like there's these like norms of what a wife does and what a mother does and what, and it's like but maybe I could change things around and make it work better for me. That's
Absolutely.
that's my, my specialty when I work with my clients is like we got to make this work for you and, obviously for God because it's all one.
Yeah. And we can't do it when we're depleted,
Right.
right? So it's all about like well, that's a whole huge conversation. How do we keep our energy alive? But the small point here in this conversation is like boundaries are what protect us, right? And protect our capacity. And we can't be receivers when we're completely depleted, when we've said yes to everything around us and so forth.
I love that. And also, you were going somewhere and you said, oh, that could be a whole other podcast, but I do want to touch on that because it's so important. In order to receive, you have to be a vessel, right? Like you have to have that bowl that contains all of the things that are being
Hmm.
received. And if you are in a place where you're not capable, right? The capacity is just not there. It's going to be very difficult to receive.
Yeah. I think this is one thing that we were talking about earlier, but it's embodying enoughness. You know, a lot of times people think that business is all about strategy and all about the brain and like what we're doing. And I think in this conversation, and each of us in our work focuses also on this other highly important, if not maybe even more important element, which is our being, how we are being, right? And our way that we're embodying that level of enoughness in this business and enoughness as humans and as women throughout our lives. And I think that this is where we can't separate life and business, right? Like women, as women, we wear so many different hats, and we are balancing, not balancing in the equal sense, but we are integrating all of those hats into how we show up in the world. And that idea of like embodying and preparing our vessel to be open to receiving, it takes this awareness even that it's not just brain and strategy and doing, but this sense that we also have to nurture and nourish our being.
Right. I love that. Ah, I'm like letting that seep in. It's
This has taken
so
this has taken me so long to come to. I feel like early in my business years, I heard people saying these things and I was like, no, they're so wrong. They're wrong. I just know I need to like tweak a certain number of things. I just need to like do this one more thing.
right.
And it's taken me a long time to see how powerful the presence of this is to me as a woman, but also to honestly go straight to the bottom line of the business.
Right. Right. It's crazy because I was thinking it's so hard to receive. And as women, receiving is our superpower. Like that is what we are built to be. But we have so much resistance to it. Could we get a little bit practical about what we could do to let go of all the judgment, let go of all the ways that we think it's not supposed to be this way, and just sort of like, settle into receiving?
I think one of the more practical ways I see this come out is that when we hear the word receiving, again, we feel like we're on the end that needed help. That's like the way that we hear this word. It's been wired into us that the whole act of receiving is like for people that aren't enough, don't have enough, need help. Like there are all sorts of like negative connotations with this idea of receiving. At its core, I believe that receiving is it's allowing, well, it's several different things, but it's allowing in what's already meant for us.
Mm,
So it's like it doesn't diminish somebody else's light by shining brighter, right? It's being open to stepping into what is already ours, like what is
mm,
already meant for us. And if we believe in there being some sort of God or divine purpose for ourselves, which is certainly what we're talking about here on this podcast, then it's abundant. It's abundant. You're not taking from somebody else. And so I think that there's this idea that one, if you are if you're feeling like you become like this needy person by being open to receive, right? We have to like unwind that story. And then the second story that when we receive, we're taking from somebody else's lot, right? Like both of these are myths. And
yeah, no,
so
they're complete nonsense because like you said, if you connect to a limitlessness, right? Like the God who does not have boundaries. We were talking about boundaries before, so we could bring that into here. There are no boundaries. It's like playing a video game and you take two and then suddenly it reappears because it just never ends. I Once you see it that way, then that's not the game you're playing, right? And so it makes it easier to receive when you realize that it's almost like part of the game is for you to learn to receive because you were going to get it anyway, but you needed to become the vessel in order to let it in.
yeah. Yeah. And also imagine that you didn't let it in, right? And your potential is writing on you receiving that thing. And I'm calling it a thing, but it's not necessarily tangible, right?
Right,
In a way that we can understand. But imagine that when we are not open to receiving what is already meant for us, then we cannot then serve.
right, right.
Right?
It
So
holds
it's
you
going
back.
from like it holds us back. It's going from feeling like these these feelings of guilt, like that we're taking from somebody else, right? To feeling like actually the more I receive, the more I actually have to give as well. And the more I can then give to the other person who is looking for the thing that I have. It's like this beautiful ecosystem.
Right. So you said the thing, and now I want to get into that. What is this thing that we're all talking about? Like receive and receiving and open yourself up. And it's like, what's the thing?
I mean, first and foremost, like if we're specifically here, we're talking about business, right? What are some of the things? There are a lot of different things, but what are we receiving? When we're designing our businesses, we're doing it from a place of strategy, right? Because if we are not, let's say we're not getting visible, right? If we don't show up, people don't know about us, right? So getting visible is it's a way of saying I believe in my worth and I'm going to show up and share my expertise, my voice, what I have to offer. And when we do that, the thing is we're being open to receiving clients,
Right.
right? People coming our way. It also shows up in the way that we craft our offers, right? If we're crafting our offers in ways where our we are putting a monetary value, and we talked about this earlier, but a monetary value behind the value that we are offering the other person, and there's that exchange, right? That we have to make it easy for people to pay us. We have to make it easy. And the way we make it easy is by expressing the value of what they're getting, right? So the receiving comes in again, we are open to receiving clients. How do we become open to receiving clients and opportunities? It's not just clients, it's also opportunities, right? Opportunities could look like getting on bigger stages, on any stages. It could look like being invited to podcasts. It could look like being invited into collaborations, right? There are lots of ways that that thing of receiving can show up in our businesses, and there are some very practical doors that we can leverage to keeping that open.
Right. Yeah. And I was thinking receiving, we were talking about receiving help, receiving support, receiving other people's input, receiving advice. Sometimes we are so wrapped up in our own story, wrapped up in our own, need for control that we don't let those things in, and they can really get in the way of you being able to go after those things like money and clients and, more visibility, whatever the thing is. But I was thinking more on that, which is fun. It's just really fun. And of course, I'm a marriage coach, so my brain always goes to like receiving the love, the validation, all of the emotions that, you just naturally enjoy when they are present, you know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that that validation, like it's a tender balance between looking at the results, right? And looking at what we create around us and the people who are giving us that validation, and also finding that validation from within, whether
Right.
or not the outside world is expressing it.
Yeah. Yeah. This is such a great, I love the tangents that we're going on. And I'm sorry to all the people listening who are like, oh, can you just stay on topic? So we are on topic, but we're doing it our way because this is what we're up to today. And I'm grateful for all of you being here, really. Let's get into more practical things. So I took you off a little bit, but we're getting back on the practical train. How do we practically prepare our bodies, our businesses, our homes for the, receiving of the next level, whatever that looks like, wherever everybody is.
Yeah. Okay. A few things. And I want to kind of actually look at this from energetic and the being space as well as the practical space, because I think that, and when I say practical, I mean like practical within your business. But on the energetic side, we talked about feeling worthy, right? Really just deciding that you are worthy, that you're enough as you are today with everything that you bring. There's a concept in business that you just need to be two steps ahead of the clients that you're looking to attract, right? So knowing you don't have to be Mel Robbins if you're looking to help somebody, let's say, relieve some anxiety in their life or relieve like some stress around how they're juggling everything in their life, right? You don't need to be Mel Robbins. You can be somebody who is 2 steps ahead of the client that you're looking to attract. And so that's where it begins. There's also this idea of releasing this need, right? Not just like needing or wanting. It's an energy that cuts us off from receiving and from abundance,
Right.
is like desperation. So we want to release that. And this is one of the harder energetic doors to open and to release ourselves of, because when we are in a place where we do need to receive opportunities or clients, it's really hard to reframe that and get to a place where we're like, but we don't want to come up in that graspy sort of needy energy. But genuinely, if we can lean into this idea that aligned opportunities are what attract our aligned clients, then we're releasing the control around it, which is another energetic shift that helps us get into that state of being able to receive.
I'm sitting
One
here
of the
nodding. You guys don't hear it, but I'm nodding. I'm like, yes, yes, yes. Because I totally hear that. Anytime I get this like desperation or like grabby energy, I like nothing, zero. My whole being drops. And especially now when I'm like so super sensitive to all the emotions going on, I really see it. I really see it. You very much remove God from the equation when you go into desperation mode.
Yeah, because we're trying to, that is us showing up, trying to control a situation that actually we don't control.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's amazing because we have, we sit there like looking at the past, projecting onto the future, like thinking worst case scenarios, and that's not necessary at all. Like it does not is the worst way to use your imagination.
Yes, absolutely. So, one of the practices that I invite my clients into and actually sort of like make them do when we're working together, but then most of them end up continuing on, like I hear from them after we're finished working together, is showing gratitude. And it's like gratitude for what already exists. I call it wins, right? Let's honor the wins. They could be micro wins, they don't have to be big, they don't have to be something that you've shared anywhere else, but just taking a moment to honor and show appreciation for what does exist already, I believe is one of the greatest ways that we can open the flow of that abundance and the energy of receiving.
I love that. I'm going to add something to this because it's so important. In Hebrew, it's called hakarat tov or hakaras tov, where you recognize the good. So
Mhm.
it's almost like gratitude, but it's even more basic. It's the recognition of the good. So when you just notice, just recognize, it starts to turn on the gratitude, right? This
Yes.
morning I was walking down the steps and I was like, okay, everybody, let's, good morning. And I'm like in a really bad mood. So I'm like, thank you, God, that I have kids, that I'm alive, that I have a stroller, that I'm, walking down the stairs. Like there's so many things that I can recognize without really being in gratitude yet that can
Mhm.
turn on that engine.
Mm. Actually really appreciate that you just offered that up. And in thinking about my clients, I think that could really help them as well, because a lot of them aren't ready to appreciate the wins that they're experiencing. So even just by calling them wins, it is sort of forcing them into, right? And over time I see that they do adopt it, but I love this idea of just recognizing first, right? We don't have to put any emotion behind it. Just just look at it like very black and white, and there is always good, always.
Yeah.
There's a concept like in tzedakah that even the poorest of the poor have to give tzedakah. Like it's important, right? Because everybody has something to give, and we don't have to measure it. We don't have to measure like the way you're able to give, the way somebody else is able to give. Likewise, we don't have to measure the way that we're able to receive or what we do receive, right? Because what has been allotted for us is going to be different for each person, and it looks different. And it's not all physical where we can understand it or see it in real time right here, or where it equates to like what we're seeing in our bank account. But I think that getting to this place of recognition, it sends this, there is an energetic exchange that is happening in our sphere. And when we start to recognize the good, I think it just opens up our awareness to all that is good. And I think like these days, with the hard times that we're living in, the scary world that we are finding ourselves in right now, I think it's really easy to stay down in the dumps and to be noticing all the tragedy around us. And and it's important to also take the time to recognize what is good. And I think that this is what keeps us above the line to
Yeah.
be able to, one, continue to function, but also be in that state of reception for more
Yeah.
for more of it.
Yeah. I think, you were just saying the hard times, and I'm thinking the thing that keeps my brother going, that I am just like blown away by the amount of, well, my daughter really gets annoyed when I say good, because everything is good and we're all in good. But like, how good is it that this is how she was killed? Like, I keep thinking, could you imagine if, let's say, that was her, her end of life was supposed to be that night, in, whatever. She could have died from, childbirth. She could have been in a car accident. I'm talking about my sister-in-law, say like it, but she wasn't. She was killed by a sniper that was waiting there to kill very intentionally, did it in the worst way possible. And that created the biggest light in the world. Like, when I was feeling, for like 2 months, I was feeling there's a breakthrough coming, there's a breakthrough coming. And it really bothered me that
Mm.
I'm feeling this way. Like, oh, I was excited about a breakthrough. And then when this happened, I was like, oh, that's the breakthrough. Maybe I shouldn't have been looking so forward to it. But like, the amount of people who were touched by her light could not have happened any other way.
Mm.
And so, like, in my mind, as much as like it's hard for me to say, like, oh, I'm grateful my sister-in-law was killed this way, like that does not come out good. And it's not what I mean. But my recognition of this is the only way it could have happened for this impact to really like blow up. Like, her light went viral, and that was incredible. That was incredible. Like, it gives me chills just to think of like all the people who connected.
Yeah. It's really hard to respond to that because I think, and I'm sure others who are listening are thinking the same thing. Like your level of faith and belief in Hashem's goodness. And, I say things like, I truly do genuinely believe that everything happens for a reason. And I say this with regards to my life, right? And that sometimes the challenges that we're facing in life do not reveal in the moment the goodness that is forthcoming as a result of that challenge. And I think, sometimes it happens in this world, sometimes that we don't see that until the next world, perhaps. But your level of faith and able to articulate how this works and the truth of how this works for you and your belief in how it works for all of us it's astounding. And I find it just hard to respond to because that is a level of receiving and acceptance and ability to recognize the good hand of Hashem, good hand of God, that I think so many of us are aspiring toward.
Thank you. Yeah, it's taken a lot of practice. We were laughing, my brother and I, we're very close. So I was like, "Hey, how you doing?" As if it's like a real question. As he's like, "Yeah, I went to my psychologist yesterday," and he's like asking me how am I doing, and I told him like, "This is what I'm doing. This is what's happening," and da, da, da. And you're like, "There's so much going on now, right?" It's like meetings every day, and like all these things he's doing. He's like, paperwork and I don't even want to know like all the things. And his psychologist is like, so like, how are you really doing? And he's like, fine. Like I just got to get through it. Like life, you got to live, right? And he's like, are you crying ever? Do you ever get to cry? It's like, oh yeah, sure, in the middle of the night. Like, oh, okay, good. I thought you weren't normal. And so we're laughing about this because on one hand, we've gone through so much, and especially my brother, like he has had so many opportunities to grow this muscle throughout his life. And this just, this just I feel like, how like there's this saying about why did the coffee spill? Because that's what was in the cup. If it would have had tea, the tea would have spilled. And so like they were saying in that meme of like whatever is inside you is going to come out when there's a shakeup. And you decide if it's coffee or tea or orange juice or apple juice or whatever. Like you have to be conscious about what you are growing inside yourself. So when this came out of my brother, I was very proud of him because I know the amount of work he has put into himself and into his belief and into his like it blows me away to see how somebody can go through so much and be so strong and fill himself up with so much God that when he spills, there's just God everywhere.
Mm, wow.
And
What a vision and what a concept.
yeah, and the fact that it hurts and the fact that like our bodies, I was telling you before, like the mind is very clear, but the body is having a hard time. So the body needs to go through the motions. And I was going like the first day I was shaking. I couldn't stop shaking. My body just didn't want to receive the information. It was like shaking it off. I was very weird because I've never had that effect before. Like I also never had to deal with this before. But anyway, and also like the whole week or even the month, I've been just drinking, 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 and nonstop drinking. And I feel like my body is trying to like wash off the news. Like it's not real. It's not real. So in the physical, like here and now, we're definitely dealing with a lot of difficult emotions and our bodies are reacting to the resistance of wanting to believe it's real. But anytime we start talking, anytime we turn the brain on, it takes over because that's what's in there.
There's so many there's so many directions we can go with that, and I mean, I don't even feel like we could talk about business, like, it feels trivial, but I do wanna say this
Yeah, let's go back. Let's go.
because I think a lot of times, a lot of business owners do feel like, "How is it possible for me to show up in these times?" And to sit and talk to Bat-Chen Grossman, Rebbetzin, who who has endured what you and your family have endured. And there's a lot of that. I think that there's a lot of feelings of guilt for those of us sitting in my seat. And I hear this from clients. I see it in the way what people are posting online. Like, how am I supposed to post anything about business today? And I want to share something that I share with my clients, which is that there's always somebody out there waiting to hear from you. There's always somebody out there who needs to hear from you, not just waiting, like they actually need you to show up today. And I don't offer that as pressure, right? It's not about like yesterday I was really sick. It's not about like pushing yourself when you're sick and you needed to be in bed. Like there's a level of self-care that should be intuitive, but unfortunately sometimes we feel like we can't accept. But on the just general, like, average day, there's always somebody out there who still needs you, and we don't need to, like, equate our hardship with somebody else's hardship. Like, that too is not it's not for us. It's not what we need to be doing. We wouldn't even know where to start to do that, so let's just not even go there,
I
right?
don't
And I
think it's
think
I don't think it's even measurable because
mhm,
anybody's experience is so unique that when you say, "Oh, I have it worse," or whatever, it's like you don't have it the same as apples and oranges, like not even fruit. It's like a giraffe and apple. Like it does not compute because each person experiences their own experience differently and is also their experience is tailor made for them. So it's a very difficult thing to even say like, "Oh, I don't compare or my little problems like aren't big enough for me to stress." Like, no, you're stressing for a reason. They're your problems. Like, it's custom
yeah.
made.
My favorite example of this was, and I love talking about it because I love talking about my dear friend Meira of blessed memory who passed away, I think 13 years ago or 12 and a half years ago. But I love talking about her because she is forever 27 because that's when she died and her energy, she was such a bright light in this world. But when she was dying of cancer, I think my kids were 2.5 years old and I have triplets. So we would talk on the phone and I'd say, "How are you feeling?" Blah, blah, blah. And then she'd say, "Okay, tell me about you. How's everything going?" And I'm like, seriously, I'm not going to fetch about how hard it is to have 2.5-year-old triplets when you're dying of cancer. And I would literally say that to her. We had such a raw and open conversations all the time. And she said to me that same thing. "Rachel, what I'm going through doesn't make what you're going through any less than. Like, it's not." That has stuck with me for the last, I think, 13 years because I think it's shaped my ability to be able to show up when there is so much trauma going on around me. If it's not in my small little lane, I feel like it's my duty, actually, like it's my job to keep showing up for those who still need us.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's just this whole exchange, like we right, so we don't have to equate it, right? We don't have to equate it. There's no way to try to equate it, but there is a role for us, and this is where I think a lot of us need to really work on relieving and relinquishing that feeling that like we need to be holding everybody's trauma. There's a space for it. Absolutely. If you don't think I'm affected by what's going on around me, oh, there is a space within me that is carrying that and it's so difficult and it's heavy and it's hard. But I can't allow it to be my entire being because it's not all meant for me in that way. And I think like we each have our path. And listen, I've had my fair share of hardship. I talk a little bit about it here and there. I'm working on it in the book that I'm writing. But it's not all that everybody's hardship and trauma and challenges are meant for all of us simultaneously. And it's such an important message that I think we all have to internalize.
I love that. I went to treatment last week and she said something so powerful. She said, "Where there is pain, there is life." Because, death doesn't have pain. Like, you don't feel it.
Mm,
So she said, "You have to feel the pain and you have to go through the pain to find the gifts, to find, what's coming, what's happening." And I think part of receiving is also being able to go through the things you're going through in order to receive the gifts that come with it. And it's very hard to say to someone who's going through something hard and you're like, just go through it. But really sort of like letting go of the resistance of like, it's not supposed to be this way. Somebody is not supposed to be killed on their way to having a baby in the hospital. It doesn't make any sense. So that resistance of it's not supposed to be this way and something is wrong and something is messed up and, the lack of going through it. Like you can't live backwards. You can only live forwards. Like this already happened. So
mhm,
it's just part of life. It's no longer something I can control or change. Now I'm feeling the pain and I'm feeling the emotions and I'm going through the motions of coming back to living my best life. That's where the gifts start to really come, where you're able to
mm,
show up and, like you said, show up raw. I came out with a sale. Like, I'm giving a free month to anybody who's signing up this week because I want the light to continue shining. And I know the work that I do is so impactful. And, my sister in law, Taylor, who was also in, treating traumas and marriages and all sorts of, illnesses. She was so powerful in lighting up the world. She wouldn't want us to sit around and cry. She'd be like, "Okay, get up, people. Let's go. Move, 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 move. You got a lot of work to do." And I know that my work is to show up. My work is not to sit around and cry. So it actually fills me up when people sign up and work with me. So, like, the best thing you could do for me if you want to help me is just like, yeah, come work with me. But
That's
also,
such a good shameless plug. That's so good. But
no,
also
really,
that's
like,
you. Yeah, but that exchange is amazing, right? You're like putting that out and
yeah.
you know that when they say yes, you're also going to light them up from the inside out.
Right. And it's like it's a win-win because they get
Yeah.
a month free. I get to work with someone extra time, which I love. And I get to light up the world in memory of my sister-in-law and the baby, which
Mm,
is like something that feels like this is what we're here to do now. Like, it's just like
yeah.
continue the legacy, continue the light, continue the goodness. She left my brother such a clear message of like, I want you to live, I want you to live well. Like, she used to always say, like, if you're already alive, you might as well enjoy it.
Hmm.
Like, you have to go all in. You have to go all in life. You have to enjoy everything you're doing. You have to live to the fullest. You have to really show up. And the way you're saying, like, I'm having a hard day, I'm not in the mood, I don't feel like showing up. Somebody's waiting for you. Somebody needs you. Somebody wants you to show up and say, "Hey, I'm here for you. I'm in this world for you."
Yeah.
And it feels really good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so powerful, and I know that it might be counterintuitive, or it might go against, the beliefs that you've been led to subscribe to, right? That like the world is hard, and that, when hard things happen, we're meant to stay down. I've actually struggled to articulate this concept for many years because I have in my core just sort of operated from that belief that, the hard is to propel us into the light, right? In some way, or to shine a light for someone else. Sometimes our hard is also meant for somebody else's light to shine brighter. But it's a hard concept to adopt and to articulate, and you do such a beautiful job of that. But what I've seen in not being able to articulate, but what I've experienced is that it works. It really works. So, where's the work? Like, if you are looking for your business to grow and for your voice to be heard, for your light to shine brighter, right? We've shared some very practical things that we can do here. And it does start from the inside out. It does start with that inner work of shifting the energy and the the faith, right? Really leaning into the belief that you have a very special, unique path that was meant for you. And if you stay on the derech, if you stay on your path, everything that's meant for you, you will be open to receiving. And
Yeah, so we talked about the energetic and we didn't get to the practical, and I want to just touch on that a little bit before we end. What type of practical things can you tell someone who's going through, this like, resistance to receive, but I know that something's coming, and what could they actually do? Like,
okay.
actions.
Okay. One, the gratitude, it is actionable, right? It
Mhm.
really is actionable. It shifts the energy, but it is actionable. Every single day, notice three things. Notice three things that are good. Notice three wins. Again, they can be micro, they can be macro, it doesn't matter. If you haven't put any strategy behind your business, right? You're clear, you need to be really clear on what you're offering, right? When we're not clear, we're not open to receiving. We're not able to attract people who are wanting to say yes, right? We need to make it easy. That's very practical. If your offers are messy, if you're not able to articulate what they are, let's get them dialed in. Okay. That's a very practical tool that you can use. Boundaries. Know what your boundaries are,
And
right?
hold the
If
boundaries.
and hold them, right? Because we said this earlier, we can't receive when we're depleted. We need to know up front, not when we're presented with the opportunity, but up front, what are our values? What are those boundaries? Where is our line of capacity so that we know where when we're in it and when we're starting to exceed it, right?
Right.
And that's when we need to pull ourselves back in. Visibility, it's a very practical pipeline to receiving, right? We have to be visible. So where are you being visible? I often like to talk about aligned visibility or your communication love language. Like you are an excellent speaker, an orator, and somebody who can show up very naturally and just share your thoughts verbally. Some people feel more comfortable and are excellent at writing, right? Some people want to be on big stages, some people want to be behind a screen. Think about where you are able to show up best and then lean into a visibility strategy that's going to work for you. Okay. Any visibility strategy will work for your business and attract the right people into it, but it has to work for you for first and foremost.
Right.
So that's another one. Systems support growth, right? Without them things feel messy, and when things feel messy and overwhelming, we are sort of sending out this message to the world like we can't handle more, right? So
Mm,
we want to have systems in there. We talked about sometimes that means different levels of support, people behind you, a team, right? Because when you are able to hold more, your business is able to attract more as well.
right.
And lastly, I would say ask for what you need. I think that this is one that can be very difficult for women in particular, but asking for what we need spiritually, strategically, and when we open ourselves up to actually asking, right? I talk a lot about the give and get model. And the give and get model is showing up to give of ourselves, our expertise, our wisdom, our support, our affection, whatever it is, and also get. And that get piece is so critical to that exchange. We have to be open to asking for what it is that we need and want to receive right now. And when we put all of those pieces together, I believe that abundant reception is just, it's there for us. It's there.
I love it. I love it. This is so fun. By the way, that my biggest fear was speaking in public. It's funny now. It's funny now, but I would freak out anytime I'd have to talk in public. Anytime. Like more than two people, I would be like, I'd like shake and stuff. Like I could be cool when I'm normal with my friends, but like as soon as you put me on the spot, black out. I made a
It's a
video
big one
about
for
it.
people.
Yeah,
I'm going to
I
go
made
look it up.
I made a video. If you go on my YouTube channel, one of the earliest videos is about my biggest fear
Okay.
and how I got over it.
All
So,
right. Let's link it in the show notes so all of us can check it out.
yeah, I will. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for having this amazing conversation with me that went like a roller coaster and is exactly what my life looks like now.
Thank you
uh,
for having me. I appreciate
yeah,
being here and being in this space with you. And I think that there was a lot of honesty and just real authenticity to this conversation. And sometimes it's messy, but
all the
it all
time.
works. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. How can people find you? Where can they, work with you?
Thanks for asking. You can find me on my brand new website at rachel-lubchansky.com. I'm sure you'll put it in the show notes because my last name is a whole mouthful. I'm also on Facebook at Rachel Lubchansky and LinkedIn as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the listeners for listening. Thank you to all those who came live. It's so fun. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Don't forget to be connected for real.